This episode has been brought to you by LimitlessMushrooms.com. For all your therapeutic psychedelic mushrooms, please go visit LimitlessMushrooms.com and use code QAH10 for a discount on all your products. Thank you so much for joining us here, everybody at Queer at Heart. And today on the show, we have Denique LeBlanc. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you added a little accent to it, and I like it. Yeah.
Well, you know,
Denique is what you can call me, Denique LeBlanc, Denique.
Well, you know, my roots are from Lebanon, so French is second language there.
How would you say Denique in a very Arabic way?
I don't know because I don't speak French, but I don't know. I'll find out for you, and I'll get back to you though.
Do you want to know a funny story, actually, quickly, not to interrupt you, but actually, so when I first was coming out in the scene in music, I called myself Neek because I actually have a tattoo on my wrist that says N-E-E-K, because N-E-E-K was my childhood nickname, and the long story short is apparently Neek means to like fuck in Arabic.
Oh,
so I would always say like
Neek. Yes, Neek is fucking Arabic.
And Nique in French is also that as well. So when I was coming out on the scene as Neek, people were like, so people would be like, I don't know if you want to go under that name. So yeah, and I don't think that was the appropriate thing.
I think it's a catchy name, and you'll get a lot of people listening, actually. If you just
yeah, exactly. Maybe I should just change my music style and go down a different route.
Well, listen, thank you so much for being here, agreeing to be on the show today, because
Thank you. I'm so happy.
Yeah. So you're a Canadian singer, artist, and you grew up in the East Coast. You were heavily involved in Celtic music, in the Celtic music scene. You began producing music at 16. Mm-hmm. Your last project you worked on was called Finally Free, which was also a video, correct? Mm-hmm. And you've been doing RuPaul's drag concerts in LA, New York, UK. You've been doing a lot of awesome shit.
It's been a crazy year. Definitely it's been so fun and kind of what I always wanted to do.
And you look amazing in your video. For those who have not listened to Finally Free, please go and listen and download it and buy it or whatever you like, buy it and listen to it because it's a beautiful video and the message is so real, you know?
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a really fun project. It was also the first time I feel like my music put me in a place of vulnerability, and it was, I think there's like a very stereotypical kind of music video formula, and I wanted to step outside of that and really explore sort of the small town experience of moving to a big city and how that relates to inter-age relationships in same-sex couples and that kind of thing. And so, and Finally Free, I actually wrote on the spot. I was actually working on this kind of like a minimum wage job. It was like really a sketchy operation where I was at, and it was really a low point for me. And I was actually remembering looking at the city skyscrapers in Montreal, and I constantly kept singing this thing of like, I'm finally free and there's a thrill inside me, and like that constantly. I was thinking like, am I free? Am I actually happy here? Because things in my life seem to have not really expanded. So since those days, and I was able to get myself out of that employment situation, things have really expanded, and I wanted to kind of pay homage to that sort of struggle that I went through when I first moved to Montreal from Halifax.
Yeah. So can you say that you did finally get free when you moved to the biggest city? Was it actually a free experience?
I think so, yeah, because it's more multicultural, and I just felt like I wanted to meet more people, and I wanted to simply just experience new flavors of ideas and just interact with people I may never otherwise have the chance to be with. And I feel like a place like Halifax, for example, I love the Maritimes, and it's a beautiful place, but there is some sort of safety or security there that you don't necessarily have in a big city, and I do I like the adrenaline rush of being kind of uncomfortable and being, you never know what can happen. So Montreal for me has been definitely a freeing experience. I don't think after what I've seen in Montreal and what I've done, I don't think I could ever return I could never return to safety, if that makes sense. But I'm sure that people are growing in different ways in the East Coast as well. So, and I love my East Coasters, so.
Yeah, and I can relate because I come from a smaller city as well.
Where are you from?
I grew up. I was born and raised in London, Ontario, up until 17 years ago.
Okay.
So I moved here 17 years ago. So I totally get what you mean. And being an artist, you know, both of us, but especially you, you know, you're just able to, you know, go that further, go that distance, and express yourself in a bigger city and have a bigger reach. So I understand,
Mhm.
you know, not being able to go back to that place. It's like, you know, you've
Well, I
expanded.
think,
Sorry, go
well,
ahead.
and I think maybe, yes, no, I cut you off actually, but yeah, I think you're right. It's like when I look back at my experience in Halifax, I have such fond memories of the time I was there, but at the same time, I just wanted to sort of take it to a new level in the sense of like more cultural diversity, more, of course, my dad being from Quebec was allowing me to, you know, highlight my French side and to practice that sort of, life and that way of living. So yeah, maybe I'll go back to Halifax in the future, but for now, I'm really loving this multicultural vibe in the city, and certainly the exchange of ideas with people I would have otherwise never met.
Yeah, well, you know, we all know Montreal is a fantastic city. You know, we all love Montreal. It's the closest
Good.
thing we
It's
get to Europe,
beautiful. Yeah.
you know? So it's a truth, you know, especially at a time like this. Um, so you're working on your second album right now, right?
Ooh, yeah, it could be.
Can we talk
I'm
about
always working on.
do you want to talk,
I'm always work.
do you want to talk a little bit about
I'm
that?
always working. All I can say is I'm always working, and I'm very excited for what the future holds.
Yeah.
But I will not. I will not say anything about it.
You will not say a word. Okay, fine.
I prefer because, and I think the work. I think it's more exciting when it's a surprise. So whether it comes out next year, 6 months from now, 5 years from now, like whichever one it is,
Or you
I
drop
like
it the same
the
night like Beyonce, something like that.
maybe that's what it is. At this point, who knows? But I like to keep the mystery because I think also within the social media era, everything's so quick and fast, and everything's spoiled, and
Yeah.
that everything is it's this my singles next week, and then it's just like a constant sort of tunnel of just constant media thrown at people, and so I think that's why I enjoy pulling away from it and really taking my time on my work so that when it comes out, it'll be a nice surprise where I haven't led up to it. I haven't spoken about it. So, but I am always working on something.
Well, you know,
I'm addicted to it.
I respect that you're taking time away in order to create space to be more creative. And this is like, I think it's one of the things you were talking to me about is you're exploring negative effects of social media right now.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think.
Can you get into that more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that for me, the thing that I struggled with, I think the most in the past 3 years since my career started kind of blossoming and I was traveling more is I love to make art because I love making art. I love making the costumes because I enjoy the process, and I enjoy spending 100 hours in front of the computer and sometimes like wanting to like smash it or something. But I enjoy the whole spectrum of the creative process, right? Which is not, it's very like, it's always challenging. I'm always very challenged. But for me, what the weirdest thing about that was this societal pressure to feel like I had to share what I was doing, and I had to feel, I was made to feel that I needed to like show the behind the scenes and needed to constantly be updating people. And I think once I realized that people are just consuming media at such a fast pace, and it doesn't matter who it is, I was able to take a step back and realize like, hey, when I disappear from these platforms, like no one gives a shit. Like really no one cares, because when I'm ready with something great, it's going to come out. And I'd rather spend the time instead of scrolling. And like, if I'm being honest, I'd rather spend the time putting energy into my work instead of like reading what so-and-so is doing. So for me, it's been a huge kind of revelation since COVID is like, the people I care about and the people actually want to know what they're doing, I'm already in touch with them because I'm calling them on the phone. But for everyone else, I don't really pay attention to that because I think it's really easy to become lost in that. And but in the same vein, the pressure is so high because everyone thinks that like, hey, if I stop posting on these platforms, am I irrelevant now? Which I think that for me, it just is always about the love of the creation. Like, I love making music. I've always been a musician, first and foremost, but the costumes and all that other stuff is just kind of a great bonus to that. But the core of it is I just make music for myself. And of course I want people to like it, but I have to look inwards first. And if I love it, I think other people will.
For sure, absolutely, and it keeps a little bit of a mystery as well. Like, I feel like I was talking to a friend a couple of weeks ago about that, about the difference between being an artist now and being an artist like 15, 20 years ago, is that right now everybody knows what you're doing at every minute. It's like you're drinking a coffee, you're at a party, you're having lunch. Everybody needs to know, like, to the minute, like really 2-3 times a day, what you're up to, and it kind of doesn't leave for any surprise.
Well, and I think it's kind of like delayed gratification. I remember as a kid, it's funny because as a kid, I was always the first one to want to open the Christmas presents 2 weeks before. Like, I was always at the Christmas tree holding the boxes and shaking it and like ripping like a little piece off the gift. And as I age, it's kind of like metaphorically, it's like that's how our society is. Like, people are just constantly analyzing everything, and especially artists who are very famous on those platforms, people are analyzing their every move, and is this a sign to something? Is this, like, people are really over analyzing these things, and I just don't think that social media and all these things is, in terms of longevity as a career, is like not. I don't think it's building careers that will last a lifetime. I think that it's a really trendy thing where people are kind of, obviously we're all addicted to it in some way. It impacts us every single day. But I think that the magic is gone when it's constantly just like it's that societal pressure to be like, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing. And like, if you're focusing so much on that time, do you really have time to work on your stuff? Like, it was only when I pulled away that I realized, oh wow, I'm spending a lot of time tweaking these images. And
even your phone tells you. Your phone tells you your screen time. You're like,
and it's scary, those numbers. I mean, I've had days where I've checked my phone and it's been like, you've been on 10 hours today, and I'm like, oh my god, like, sorry,
I know that
I
feeling.
worked for 7 hours. I'm like, I worked 7 hours today. How's that possible? But that's what. I think that
you were live streaming. You were on Instagram live streaming. So yes, that's work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wish that was the case. No, but I really love not to know what people are doing, and I don't really want to talk about my work and really dive into it so much to tell you what a song like Finally Free is exactly, or to tell people what my music is, because I think that people will form their own relationships to your work, and I want that fantasy and that magic that people feel if they interact with my work. I want it to be alive. I don't want to tell you what it is. I want you to make whatever it is, make it whatever you want it to be. So I think that people, but I don't blame people, by the way. I think it's just culturally the way that the Facebook algorithms and Twitter and Instagram, it really makes us believe that if we want to be somebody, we have to do it. But I'm more interested in looking at ways like, how can I be a successful artist and not use these platforms? That's more innovative to me than anything.
Yeah, well, you're like one of the very few people who could, I feel, say that right now, because everybody's using these platforms. And I think there's definitely something to be said about, stepping away from it. And there's many artists who actually talk about this. And one of them being, I mean, I'm not a huge Miley Cyrus fan, but I was reading this thing.
I love Miley.
Yeah, I like her too. I love her I love her as a person. I think she's awesome, but she also pulled away from social media for a while. Okay. And she was saying, I have to pull away because I'm creating an album right now. And I believe she disabled the account just to create that album. People were just sort of like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Now we don't know what Miley Cyrus is doing on a daily basis. It's like, well, she just came out with a pretty cool album. But I mean, it takes distancing yourself, and finding a space that allows you to channel, that creativity. And so, I think I admire you for doing that. I really honor you for doing that, because it's awesome. And it's a great example for people to just step away and go create, create the space.
It's funny you're saying that, though, and I'm not calling you out, but it's also, I think it's a really crazy idea that we also have to commend people for being off of it. Like that's how you know
It's true.
it's a really crazy situation where
It is.
people are like, wow, good work for not being on it. But the truth is, like, at a societal level, like, what does it say, you know, if we're living in this virtual world? Like, for me, if everything's virtual, then what is real? I do think, I remember I heard of this, the Social Dilemma documentary. And so, like I said, I don't really watch shows or series or whatever, but I did watch the Social Dilemma. But the one missing piece in that documentary that I found is the takeaway of that film was like, shut your notifications off. Whereas I think the takeaway of that film should be like, hey, look up, like, look away from the screen, look at your life. What is actually in front of you? Those are the things that, to me now, are more interesting. So it's like, if I'm sewing at a sewing machine, I really want to, like, look at the needle and, like, look at the machine I'm using and not be constantly on my phone sidetracked. Like, if I'm sewing, I really want to sew.
Yeah, being in that moment.
I want to be in that moment. I don't. And listen, I'm not trying to sound like I'm perfect. I'm on my phone at times for hours at a time, but I'm conscious.
No, not at all. I get what you're saying.
Conscious of that brainwashing of how much time I've put into, like, focusing on other people's lives and focusing on, and not even other people that are in my life, just people that I've never even heard of or don't know, and just, like, looking through their images. So I think I think it's sad that we have to, like, it's a commendable thing to not be on the systems, whereas, like, actually real life's happening, and I feel like we're all missing it. And so I think for me, missing just things as they happen, and just, like, at a grocery store, like, you know, like, maybe a kind smile with someone passing me by in the aisle. Like, if I'm just on my phone, I'm going to miss out on all these small, like, beautiful things in life. So
I agree.
I think so I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that the next phase of my career, I don't want to be in front of a computer. I mean, the creation of it is fully in front of a computer. So once it's the next, whatever I do is finished, I want to just be, like, living my life and taking it to people in the flesh, if possible.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's almost the next logical, like, I mean, how much further can we go with social media? And it does take us away from the moment, you know, it does take us away from being mindful of what we're doing. And so I think it's a really great example. And the reason why I commend you for it, and I know what you're saying is like, oh, we shouldn't have to commend people, is because there's just so much pressure. Yeah. The pressure's on, and good for you and good for anybody, for all, like, you know, for removing ourselves, because the pressure becomes less and less the more you remove yourself. It's like drinking.
Who is the pressure coming from? That's the question.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I think because I think there is some sort of I can say, at least with myself, there was some sort of delusion there, where there was a point where I thought like, oh, I'm starting to get this following, I'm starting to do these things, but just the concept of, like, following, I really don't want people to follow my life. I want people to follow my my art. But the truth is that no one's ever been following my life. But the algorithm kind of plays with your head to think that you have these followers or these things. It's like,
who care about you?
Of my name. Yeah. People, like at best, I can say people have seen me. Mm-hmm. Some people might think I'm creative, and some people might like my music. That's as far as it goes. Like, there's no one thinking about what Denique's doing today.
Yeah,
you know, there's no. I mean, maybe if I disappear for, like, let's say, like, a year on social media, I'll say, like, where is he? But other than that, I think that's what the pressure comes from, that delusion of thinking that people really care about what you're doing in this virtual space. Whereas, like, I'm very active in my real life, talking to just my friends and calling them, and everyone I'm close with knows what I'm doing. Yeah, because we've actually, like, had the conversation. So I don't blame people, but it plays with your head. And for a long time, I thought, like, wow, like, I'm on the come up here. I'm really working things now, and I just realized now, like, actually, I've always been the same artist. It's just more people might know about me through these platforms, but. There's got to be a more efficient way to do it, instead of, like, spending my time in front of a screen. I don't know.
I think so. I think
we'll see.
I think it's very possible. Well, yeah, no, I think it's possible, and I think that platforms like this, I don't know if we consider this social media. I don't But I mean, platforms like this where we're talking about the art, we're having, you know, interactive conversations about the art.
This is engaging.
This is engaging. This is great. This is lovely. So yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah. And I'm totally with you when it comes to social media. And yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
I just think it's like, I think it's the expiration of it is so evident to me. Like if you've built, and I might be really wrong. So if I could be completely wrong, and that's fine for me. But I think that if, like, for people who've built their entire career based on just like images and like a modified version of their, you know, real lives, I sometimes like wonder how that's going to be in like 20 years, you know, with government taking internet control or something like that. Like we never know how things can change. So at the end of the day, like I just say like, oh fuck, wait, my headphones fell out. I just say create for yourself and share it in the best ways you can. But remember that life in the flesh is just so much more interesting than a life in front of a screen. And that's coming from years of being in front of a screen.
Yeah. And yeah, no, and it's completely true. It's going 100% true because, you know, I saw your social media maybe once or twice, and I actually thought you might have an accent. So like, imagine, I thought you might have like this French accent, and I'm meeting you right now and you don't. So you know what I mean? It's just the illusion you create about people on social media is so big, so vast.
But it's, and it's so, and I think it's also quite blinding as well, because I think you can form these sort of, I mean, I think the imagination, like the human imagination is awesome in a lot of ways, but I think it becomes a crazy war zone of like, what is real anymore? Like, what is real? If we don't know what is modified, who's what, how can we have conversations that actually mean something, or how can we create art that's going to actually have value in society and culture? But that being said, I'm all about fantasy and like fictional storylines and like weird photo editing and all that. So I'm all about using your imagination in like crazy ways, but I think it also does create this more challenging atmosphere where I don't think anyone can tell anymore what is what, because we're just fed so much information in a day that I think the human brain is bombarded by like constantly being like, is that real? Is it not? Is that really how tall this person is? Is it not? Like, we don't know.
It's almost disappointing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like so disappointing for people, because when they see people on social media and they create this image and this illusion and then, you know, of who this person is, and they see them in an interview or talking even in video, that it becomes very disappointing to people because their illusion becomes busted sometimes. And, you know, yeah, it is very superficial and very vain in so many ways. And so I'm really happy that there are people like you who are moving away from it, because I think that's very.
I would say that it's both things. I think it can be. I think it depends on in which way you use it. I mean, I think it can be superficial. It can also be really great in the sense of like connecting with old friends. I've been inspired, and of course you have, I'm sure, by so many different pages. But I just wonder the expiration of it long term, how it's going to affect the world. But I personally. I think it's like more interesting to meet artists in a way that's like not conventional now. Like I want to just see like, how can I make a music career happen, but not have to rely on sort of sharing details about my life that I don't want people to know, or just details of my life that are just like for me to experience.
Yeah. Keeping it about the art.
Yeah. Well, right? I think that's, ultimately that's my goal. But also my goal is just to make really like my only dream in my life is to create really beautiful textured art that's innovating and that people find engaging and fun. Like that's the only thing I want in my life. Like that's my number one purpose, is just to create magic and hope that people feel that. I
think people do, actually, and I think that you're doing a really good job at it, because I've been watching your videos, and Finally Free and Harmonize, which is the most recent one you have out, and the images are beautiful. So thank you. So thank you for that, Denique.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to share with us? about, or like, you said you're off to do a new album right now. So what we could expect it in 6 months, a year, however long. But are you going to keep putting out at least some singles, just like you did with Harmonize?
No.
No? No?
No, I won't. Yeah, so here's what I'll say. I had such a great 3 years, and the speed at which things accelerated was really amazing, super cool experience. But I'm in a mode right now where I just want to take time to myself and to focus on, focus on the aspects of the new work. But I believe in bodies of work. I think that I want to take time, because I think that if I'm being honest, I think the trap of the singles game is that it gets really difficult when you're releasing single, and this is just my opinion, so this might be totally opposite for like another artist. Okay. But for me, I think that I think in putting singles, it's just delaying, or it's like putting energy into something that's not actually like a full body of thoughts or a full experience. I don't think you can get enough of an audio experience in just 3 minutes. I don't think I can bring people into a universe like I did with my first album, Shape One, which was, I don't know, I can't remember, like 65 minutes or something of like a full hour of, I think that in order to invite people and to curate this sort of whatever it is you're envisioning, I think it's better to have a full body of work prepared. But that also means it's a lot more difficult because it's a lot of work, and
so time consuming, and it's so much more exciting.
I love it. But it's exciting, but it's really challenging. Like, it really puts my mind, especially with digital music and production. I mean, there's not even, I feel like the queer production world is so small. It's such a hetero male dominated industry.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And so for me, diving into those technical things, it just allows me to understand and appreciate a body of work so much more. And that's why anytime an artist drops an album, I'm always going to be so supportive of it, because I know what kind of energy and emotion and stuff like that goes into it. And me being currently in production for the next creation, it's highlighting a lot of that. And I think the interesting thing too is it never gets easier. So for me, I'm always kind of blown away at how I'm constantly learning new things and taking in new technological information and learning about different ways to make sound manipulate in a certain way, and then that plus the added costume and imagery and the album cover and all these things, that's my favorite things to do. But I think for me it's like I'm at the stage where I'm just focusing solely on creating something really magical, and I just want to create something that I really believe in. And I'm hoping that if I believe in it, then people may or may not believe in it as well. But
well, at the very least, it takes you to believe in it for anybody to believe in it, right? So, and I think that's I think that's so important. And also, my God, I had a second thought and I totally forgot. Go ahead, though. Continue.
I think that in general, just sticking to your guns is the ultimate thing. I mean, I've always been so, I think people might assume that I might be quite extroverted, but I'm very introverted in a lot of ways. I think
I can see that.
In personality wise, maybe like I have a loud voice. So I think people think that I'm like, woo, I love to be crazy. But I actually prefer to just like sit with my thoughts and sit with my work and let it kind of organically flow out of me. Like the real truth is, the reason I can't talk about anything I'm working on is because I don't even know what it's going to be. Like what it is today might, like I could theoretically tell you what my work sounds like today. But in a year, I might talk to you in a year and it might be completely not what it was today. But that's the thing I'm excited about, is just always staying curious about like, what are my vocal cords going to do now? Like what sort of violin textured sound can I create? It's like this, I feel like in a way, not to say like I am my own biggest fan, but I'm like the most curious person about my work. Like I'm always curious to see in what way does this thing evolve and in what ways. And projects like Harmonize, which was my most recent one, that was an example of like something that just flowed very naturally. There was no second guessing. It was just all like one take, do this thing, put it out there. And that's what's fun. I'm still discovering myself what it's going to be. So yeah, I think keeping the secret alive is really what makes it fun.
Yeah, well, I have fun watching your stuff, and I'm sure that everybody else is going to have, hopefully equal amount of fun because it's awesome stuff. And
Thank
one
you.
one question I want to ask you is this: have you always done costume? Like because I know you started making music at 16. Have you always been in costume, or has that been something that's come up for you in the last decade or so?
Yeah, I definitely. I think when I was probably 14, I always definitely wore unusual clothing, or I was always attracted to things that were particularly different. Or I really love that. I don't know where it comes from in my body, but if I haven't seen something, I'm really excited about it. Okay. So the costume. So I would go to like vintage stores when I was in high school and try on all these like very bizarre things. And I remember I wore this green blazer in one of my videos when I was 16. I was doing, I think it was like what the hell song was that? Anyways, it was some cover song. And I wore this really weird blazer and everyone gave me a lot of shit for it. They're like, it's weird. It's really like alien. And yeah, people were really, my extended family was like, what the F? And yeah, and then basically it just over time, I just started experimenting with different shapes. Like I actually would cut out cardboard. I started getting into like cardboard and seeing what shapes could be made with that. But then it wasn't until I think 2017 that I actually purchased a sewing machine, an industrial machine, and wanted, like I always dreamed of this, the potential in costumes, but I didn't know how to do it. And I always was like waiting for someone to knock on my door and say like, hey, here's a costume, which of course we all know that's, when you think of an idea, it's like, it's really not going to happen until I do it. Yeah. And so I bought a sewing machine and then, yeah, I had a little bit of a one session with a really cool seamstress and fashion designer in Montreal. And he gave me like the start to go, Yves-Jean Lacasse, he's amazing. And he gave me kind of the first skills to do it. And then I started sewing these kind of like very like shapy, kind of almost 2D costumes. Like I was really inspired by like Paper Mario and Nintendo and that kind of stuff when I started. And so, yeah, so then basically since then it's just me evolving. And now I'm working with a designer from Cirque du Soleil who worked with me for 30 years. Yeah. This was actually created with Peter McNaughton from Cirque du Soleil. And so that's so cool. And so, yeah. And so I've like kind of intersected into the circus world, except I can't do any somersaults or anything. Like I can play the fiddle in the background, but yeah, so in general, the costume design has been a lot of fun, but it really allows me to live this fantasy and to, there's something sort of magical about it that makes me feel alive, and it makes me there's like such a beauty to it, and I think I'm kind of if I'm thinking of the future, like I'm always trying to see how it evolves, but there's no destination with my image. Like it's always going to change. I don't think there's I'm kind of like I want to experiment with something and realize that character and then like allow it, kind of like a Pokemon, just allow it to keep evolving. So yeah, but I definitely love exploring different materials, and especially things that are like not typical, like plastic or metal or
what those aren't real bubbles. Is that what you're telling me right now?
I just got out of the shower actually. I got out of the bathtub and here I am.
Well, like, listen, like, I want to just say thank you for creating this magic and this, like, this magical, fictional, whatever it is you do, because you bring us into it as well. So when we're watching, we're actually becoming a part of it. So thank you for that.
I'm glad to hear it. And that's the thing. If I can, it's not necessarily about inspiring people, but I think that if you have a certain fantasy in your life that you want to live, in whatever way possible, live it up. Live your best damn life. You only live once. So, life's really too short to be boring.
I couldn't agree more. So listen, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
show.
you. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
You're so welcome. And we'll do this again. So like when you come out with something new, promise me you're going to come back and we're going to talk about your projects.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
If and when that happens, I will absolutely come back.
All right, cool. So thank you everybody for joining us here at Queer at Heart. So stay tuned for all of Denique LeBlanc's projects, music, art, and yeah, keep an eye out.
Can't wait. See you later.
Ciao.